Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Today, we're talking about parole ineligibility. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Deanna Becerra was convicted of a criminal offense, and after her conviction, but before she was sentenced, she spent some time in jail beginning to serve her sentence. Unfortunately, a question arose as to whether or not that time, before she was sentenced and after she was convicted, counted towards her period before she was eligible for early release. The court had to consider in her case whether or not the combined effect of certain provisions of the Criminal Code and certain provisions of the Charter ultimately prevented her from getting earlier release because she'd started serving her sentence before she was actually sentenced. And this raises a very interesting question. Do these provisions offend the Charter, or does the Charter actually operate to create longer sentences in circumstances for individuals who would otherwise be entitled to early release if they had started their period in custody the day of their sentencing, rather than earlier to take advantage of some pre-trial or pre-sentencing custody period? This case was the exact type of case the Supreme Court of Canada should have heard, because it deals with the most significant penalty that we have in the Canadian law system, and that's a jail sentence. This is the type of thing that has a significant effect not just on the people who are sentenced to custody, but also on the justice system as a whole, because judges need to know what people are going to be receiving, and lawyers need to know exactly how parole ineligibility and parole eligibility is going to be calculated, and whether or not those provisions violate the Charter, or whether or not they create an unfair circumstance so that lawyers and judges can properly advise and properly implement those provisions when sentencing individuals. This was a case that called out for a little bit more clarification about how the Charter corresponds with parole eligibility laws in the Criminal Code to allow this person the opportunity to have the most fair sentence that she could have had in the circumstances. And it's a shame that the Supreme Court of Canada didn't hear this case and didn't take the opportunity to decide these issues. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. I'm Kyla Lee at Acumen Law Corporation. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.